Hi, Paul Slackus, Good News Broadcast, speaking to Arthur Van Wiesenberger. Hi, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Great to be on.
Good to be on with you. Bottled Water Web, the definitive bottled water site. I was speaking with good friend Arthur, and Arthur knows an immense amount about water and bottled water. And tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, certainly. I started with my passion for bottled water back when I was just a little kid, because I grew up in Italy where my parents didn't let me drink soft drinks, so the only thing I could drink was water, and there was different brands of bottled water all throughout Italy. There were in those days even, there were over 200 brands of bottled water. So I used to keep a little journal of my favorite brands, and that way if I was in Naples, I know I'd have some Farella water. If I was in Rome, I'd have Acqua Sorgente. Those are my favorite there. Or up in Florence, it would be Acqua Pana. And that was sort of how I started. I just kept notes and kind of was a passionate hobbyist about the subject. And then one day someone said, would you like to write an article about it? And the article evolved into a book which was published in 1978 called Oasis, The Complete Guide to Bottled Water Throughout the World. Okay. Since then, I've written 3 more books on the subject.
And what are you writing? In what regard?
Well, it's only about the subject of bottled water, where the water comes from, the history of the springs. I mean, most of these springs that are being bottled go back centuries, in some cases to the dawn of time. And there's enormous history connected to them, especially the European springs, many of which were revered by first the local inhabitants and then subsequently the Romans, who sort of beat paths to the best springs throughout Europe, and they built temples to these sources because they were in such awe of the miraculous qualities of certain waters, healing properties, therapeutic value to this water, besides the fact that it also tasted good.
Mm-hmm. So water, you think water, if we do have some of it, and it's not contaminated, it's the sustenance of life, right?
Second to air, it's the most important thing to life. You can live for a month or more without food, but only a few days without water.
It's amazing, isn't it? So, but your interest in this, I mean, I think is quite fascinating. I mean, Italy is, and actually a lot of waters, I was involved with something with Terme de Salsa Maggiore, and I think Pellegrino is right down the street around there. There's a lot of earthquake conditions, volcanic, and so on and so forth. Water tastes a little different, you think, in Italy?
Well, every spring has got its own unique qualities. It's kind of like a fingerprint. No two are the same because they reflect the minerals and the trace elements and all the things the water comes in contact with as it journeys underground. And some of these springs have been underground out of the hydrological cycle for more than 100 years, in some cases thousands of years. And they're impregnated with these trace elements and unique minerals, and that's what gives the water its character. And as they found over the years, certain waters had definite direct physiological effects. I mean, if you drank the water from the Vosges Mountains, like Vitel, for example, that eliminated kidney stones in a homeopathic way. Other waters would help as natural diuretics, like Comprexodil. And yet other waters had lithium in them that some people claimed would keep your spirits in a better balance.
Well, you're actually down at Berkeley Springs, is that so?
Yes, I'm at the 19th Annual Berkeley Springs International Water Tasting Competition. It's where we get all these waters from all over the world, and they compete for the best tasting water. They try and win the bronze, the silver, and the gold here at Berkeley Springs, and it's done in each category of water. It includes the non-carbonated spring water category, which are waters like Poland Springs or Arrowhead or Calistoga, brands like that. The carbonated category, which would be more like Saratoga or San Pellegrino. And then there's also the purified waters, waters like Nestle Pure Life or Aquafina or Dasani. So those are the 3 bottled water categories, and there's also a competition amongst the municipal water companies. Those companies that put water through the tap and into your home.
What does purified mean, water?
Purified means that the water has been substantially altered from its natural state, and it's usually through a very significant purification process that removes everything out of the water, all of its minerals, any contaminants, chlorine, etc., and therefore it has been dramatically changed. Distilled water is a good example of a purified water, for example, or reverse osmosis water. In some cases, some bottlers will actually add minerals back to the purified water to give it a taste. Dasani, for example, does that in their product.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Now, your affiliation with this Berkeley Springs event is what?
I serve as the water master, and my job requires me to train the judges, both the preliminary judges, which we had 14 here yesterday, tasting the initial entries, and then the preliminary judges, then once they've been trained on how to evaluate water, they select the top 50 percentile of the entries, and those then go on to the final, which is tomorrow night, where another panel of 14 or so judges will be tasting those waters and determining who are the best of the best.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Now, I also know, since our good friend and board member Phil Sowers, and quite involved with our show, The Water Hour, he's the founder of the World Water Rescue Foundation. He's down there filming for Good News broadcast, which is good. And we have an upcoming event, actually, here in New York. I don't know if Phil had a chance to mention it to you, but New York City's first annual Water Festival, and we have Pete Seeger very connected and involved with this event that we're going to have here in June. So a lot of good things happening. Environment is taking on a big concern worldwide, and a much more appreciative excitement, I would say. Let's put it that way. How do you see
Absolutely.
that?
And I think more and more people are aware of the importance of water, and there's some wonderful companies out there that are making lots of contributions to communities that need help with their water. In fact, the gold medal winner from last year here in Berkeley Springs is here again this year, and the owner was talking about how their company has taken off since they won the gold medal at Berkeley Springs, both because of its taste, but also because of their goal, which is as a nonprofit to donate money, especially into the Sahara area, into the Senegal and places in Africa where water shortages are extreme. And so far, they told me since they started last year, they've raised $15 million, and that's pretty great for a nonprofit.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. Let me ask you a couple more questions. I know you're busy down there. Desalination, how do you see that as a future?
Well, desal is definitely a great solution for water communities or communities in need of water that happen to be by the ocean, because it's not an inexpensive way to get water, but it's certainly a solution to get water. Desal systems, in fact, Santa Barbara, my hometown, has a desal plant. It's not operative at this particular moment, but it definitely was there to help us when we were in the middle of a drought. And the water quality that was coming out of the desal plant was better tasting tap water than the stuff that was coming out of the reservoir. And remember, they started with this desal plant with water that had about 20 or 22,000 parts per million in dissolved solids, and they got it down to 200 parts per million in dissolved solids. So it was a very big change from what came out, what goes into the system.
Do you think in the future, based on the reality that in essence all the water on planet Earth is already here on planet Earth, and that many people don't have access to it, but that there's possibly a concern of whether there's enough clean, fresh drinking water, that tremendous amounts of financial expenditures and human power should be going into desalination?
Well, desal, the downside of desal is it's very expensive. It takes a lot of energy to produce desalinated water. Mm-hmm. The cost per gallon is very high. Mm-hmm. But then you have to look at water in general and realize that it's a very underpriced commodity. Really, in essence, water, and I'm talking now about municipal water, is very cheap. And I think it's one of those undervalued commodities that we'll see in the future go through the roof. Maybe it will make what happened with the price of gasoline this past summer look like a blip on the radar in comparison, because the one thing about cars, you can always find other ways to go somewhere or just not drive as much. But with water, we need water, and the communities need water. we'll have to be a lot more careful, I think, with the way we use water. I mean, right now people take it for granted. But truly, the value of water you discover when you don't have it. That's what Benjamin Franklin said many years ago. We only know the worth of water when the well is dry.
Mm-hmm. So to look forwards towards that concern, and if there's only so much fresh drinking water on the planet Earth, we're going to have to do something with that salt water, right?
Well, salt water is one approach. I've seen some other very creative ideas, and I think, the great thing about the United States is whenever we're faced with a challenge, we have a lot of ingenuity, a lot of innovativeness, a lot of creative people, and they'll come up with solutions to meet these challenges. Just recently, I saw a system that uses water from air. It basically is like a dehumidifier, but a giant dehumidifier that takes the water out of the air and makes it drinking quality water. And that's a great idea, because in places where you've got a lot of humidity, you can produce water all day long. And this works even in very dry communities, as dry as, say, Palm Springs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, there's the future. There's today and the future. That's what you're involved with, right, Arthur?
It's all good news on the waterfront.
Okay. What is good news for you, personally?
Good news for me is always to have good tasting water and have it available wherever I am, because to me, bottled water is not just a gastronomic indulgence. It is truly a necessity of life, and we're lucky here in the United States to be able to find water wherever we go.
Okay. Arthur, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to speak with you. I look forward to doing it again.
Thank you, Paul.
Bye-bye.